Yes, always looking to grow, and it really the money. And I want to be very clear: we don't do it for the money. None of us do it for the money. It's the money is just a tracker. It's just to say we're playing the game the right way. How do you know you've added value to somebody's life? Well, they paid you for it, right? If somebody's willing to give you money, like hard-earned money that they've walked away from to give it to you, then you must have something more valuable than what they had at the moment.
Welcome to another episode, Way More Customers. It's your host, Bilal. Today on this episode, I have a really cool guest. His name is Gualter. And just to give you a bit information about Gualter and why I brought him on the show, first of all, he is the author to Broke to a Quarter Million. He's consistently working right now in the field. I try to bring on guests, people that are actually, not only like have they done it, but they're actually doing it right now. And he is the perfect example. He's one of the experts in his field, and he's going to be coming on and sharing his values and his strategies about how he's taking his business and how he's helping others. And more importantly, I want to talk about also his challenge. He says he has a challenge to make 100 millionaires.
That's right. Thank you, Paul. That's a hell of an introduction. I appreciate you, brother. You make me sound like a king.
Yeah, definitely. It was great meeting you, and then it was nice that I was able to stay connected with you, and it shows that like meeting someone for the first time, you're not sure how it might turn out, right? So when I had initially met you, who knew that we were gonna doing this podcast together,
Yeah, it's true. Like we met at another event, and the people that we were hanging out with were good people. I think that's the key is that you're hanging out with good people. They're building their businesses. You're building their businesses. You're looking to add value. You gotta have the same people in the room, And it's cool that you reached out, and after checking out some of the stuff you've been doing, it's like this. Like Bilal, you're on track. You're doing the right things. You're helping people. You're adding people's business. Marketing is really, it's the lifeblood of a business. Without marketing, the business doesn't have any clients, right? So what you're doing is the first and most important part of a business. So being on here on this podcast in particular is pretty cool. I definitely appreciate the invite.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. So I want to start off and like, you're a real estate agent, right?
I carry my license, yes. So I have done a lot of real estate transactions. Yep.
Okay, perfect. So for people that are like, just want to have a clarification of exactly what you're doing. So are you selling homes, or are you like, do you have people that are doing it for you?
Yep. So I do a little bit of everything, and I hate to say that because then a confused mind says no, right? But ultimately, I'm a real estate investor, and I buy property, and that's why I do all the training and the coaching is to teach people to bring me the right properties, teach people how to get rich themselves. There's something called wholesaling out there where people find a property cheap and they sell it to an investor like myself for more money than what they found it for. So I teach wholesaling, and I teach real estate agents to do the same thing. So through all of this, I ended up building a team of real estate agents and a team of wholesalers just as kind of an accident of going out and teaching people. And it's helped me buy more and more property. And I love owning property. I love doing the flips. And my tenants are one of my favorite people to talk to, right? Every first of the month, they send the checks in, and I get the little high five or a little text message, thank you. So that's in a nutshell what I do. Invest in real estate, invest in people, and agency was a way for me to transact and teach other investors how to either sell or buy property.
Okay, well, thank you for clarifying that. So for people like that might think that this is difficult or hard to get into, would you be able to like maybe clarify, you've clarified that you have an agency, you have clarified you have people. I want to help like break it down just to make it simpler to digest. So currently, how many employees or how many people are you working with in your team?
So we currently touch over 120 people. We have 50 tenants that actually live in our building, so that's 50 families. Then we have the property management company, which we partner with. We don't actually own it. We just partner with them. They have 15 employees that manage our properties for us. And then our team is 25 real estate agents. So those 25 real estate agents, they work directly with us. I like to call everybody partners. I don't like to say anybody works for me. We're partners. We work together. We add value to each other. The wholesaling team is another about 25 people, and all champions, every single one of them. Then we have our investment partners. It's a big network of people. But every day, every single person in the group is somehow adding value, somehow increasing income, and it's growing exponentially as we're looking for more students, right? Our students are another group of people. Those are the 100 millionaires. So right now we have 25 people in that program, and we're running them through the process to build millionaires themselves. So it's
Okay.
growing.
So for your partners and for these students actually,
Yeah.
how did they get started with you? Like how did they know like this was like, a good program to get involved with?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a phenomenal question, right? Every marketer, and I'm going to tell you the same thing. Gary Vee will tell you, right? Ty Lopez will tell you, is I give a ton of free content. I'm like always pumping this out, the blog, the podcast, every Saturday I do a training for free at 10 a.m. It's broadcast all across the country. So it's like, hey, if you know somebody, come on in. In the past, it was local. I was keeping it local, but with COVID-19, it opened me up and was like, dude, like do it online. Now I'm pulling people from all over the place, and it's really expanding. So free content, the 52 weeks of wealth that I teach, it's every Saturday at 10 o'clock. For an hour, I go and I teach one of the 52 principles that have built me to become the millionaire, and what I use to teach other people. And my partners, this is stuff we used to keep to ourselves, but we just mapped it out. And we're like, dude, if everybody knew these 52 principles and they spent one whole week pounding on this principle and working on it, the world could be rich. It was just a matter of getting it to them. So that's the easiest way is Saturday. Go to my Facebook, click the link. Every Saturday, 10 a.m. the Zoom call, or go to my Facebook Live. I record it live as well. And that's how people jump in and they see what I'm about. They can go back, watch the old videos. And if they're interested, if they want to take it to the next step, I offer a mentorship program that I keep pretty cheap, but like enough money to make sure that people are serious. You can't go and charge people $100,000 to teach them to make $1 million, but you can't charge them $10 because they won't show up. So it's in that between. So we charge $1,000 for an 8-week course. And in that 8 weeks, there are other programs they could buy if they're at that level. If not, then we're not forcing people to become millionaires. We're saying, hey, when you're ready, the next level is this. And we keep moving people through the funnel.
Right. So amazing. So thank you for actually giving us that map, and how you do it. Just to break it down, like our audience, we're trying to reach like 10K per month.
Perfect.
And just to give perspective, like to make $1 million in a year, it's about 83,000 per month,
Very good.
Yeah. So,
Yep.
I mean, there's definitely a gap. But yeah, we definitely want to like for us, if we made like 10,000 per month, we'd be extremely happy. Obviously,
Right.
if we were making 83,000 a month, we'd be extremely happy.
Oh,
So
it's 10x, right? 10x.
yeah, exactly. So and a lot of people like they think that when they hear people who are successful, like sometimes they think they can't do it because they don't have the skills, or they don't have like the same passion or motivation or resources that someone who is successful that has. So maybe you want to like explain, and I want to really like talk about how you got started. Okay, so
Yeah.
I want to know like how you got your skills, where you got them from. So to really make this realistic, is this even possible? Is it really something that anyone that's ordinary, that has like just a motivation to actually reach a target, are they able to do it? So like you mentioned you wrote a book. You mentioned that you've made over $1 million, and I can tell by having like over 100 partners that you're able to do a lot more than $1 million in a year.
Absolutely. Yep.
Would you say you're very like comfortable, or you're still looking to get bigger and grow?
I love that question. So there's a lot of questions, a good conversation. We're definitely going to have a fun conversation. So yes, always looking to grow, and it really, the money, and I want to be very clear, we don't do it for the money. None of us do it for the money. It's the money is just a tracker. It's just to say we're playing the game the right way. How do you know you've added value to somebody's life? Well, they paid you for it, right? If somebody's willing to give you money, like hard-earned money that they've walked away from to give it to you, then you must have something more valuable than what they had at the moment. So that's one of the big keys. That's why money is so important for us. Is it's a tracker of how much value you're adding to the world. If you're adding $1 million worth, you've done good. If you're adding $10,000 more to the world than was previously added, people, that $10,000 worth of value has been added. So you've done a great job. So it's in a $10,000 goal. Let me tell you, when I started, it was a $5,000 goal, and I was just happy to make $5,000, and because I'd gotten down to a $17,000 a year, right? So when I wrote the book, Broke to $250,000, it was about that $17,000 a year, where I made $17,000, but my net worth was negative $25,000, because they'll let you go under 0, right? The credit cards, just keep, putting things on, hoping the business turns around, hoping you figure it out. I started out as a real estate agent. Well, I got into it as an agent, and I wasn't very good. And I was an accountant previously.
I want to ask, like, what made you want to go into real estate agent?
Perfect. That's a great question. So I started stock trading while I was an accountant, stock trading, and I realized I wasn't very good at it, right? I'd go up, I'd make these big wins, and then I'd go down, I'd lose. And big wins to me back then was, I'd make $300, right? I'd make $300, thought it was a great day, and then I'd lose, $400 and be like, holy crap, like I'm not doing good here, like I've got to change something. And as I was reading, researching, read the Rich Dad Poor Dad and realized real estate is probably the better way to go. A little stabler, a little slower, but a lot bigger. And dollar amount wasn't too crazy. So I started, researching. I bought a house, 3-family, owner occupied. And that's all in the book. I really go into the details of it in the book, how I started. And because the message is, you don't have to make $1 million. Just make more than you're making today. Just, do a little better so that your life is a little better. Like I wrote the book $250,000 for a reason. I didn't say, hey, go broke to $1 million. It was, I want normal people who are at normal levels to realize that they can just do more. And the mission is not a money mission. I'll never stop because I love playing the game so much. But I would say the biggest step, if you're aiming for 10,000, aim for 100,000. Right? If you're aiming for 10,000 a month, aim for 100,000. The game is played differently, and it makes it so much easier. It's a 10x rule, right? Grant Cardone, like 10x. He's right. He's right, and I aimed at 40 units. Like in the beginning, I wanted 4 units. I just thought if I could get 4 apartment units, that would be awesome. Like that'd be something. And then when I got my first 3-family, I realized, okay, I got a 3-family. That's close. But I always had in the back of my head, like, I'm not really an investor. I only own 1 house.
Okay,
right?
so just to clarify, you were a real estate agent, meaning you were helping people buy and sell houses, and then you thought this was a good idea, so you wanted to own your own property?
Yeah. So I realized the richest people I knew had multiple properties, right? So as I was working as an agent, my first year, I only made 17,000, but the second year I made 100,000. And I made that 100,000, but I was working my butt off. Like I was working so many hours, talking to so many different people. I wasn't sure what was working, what wasn't working. I just knew I was putting a ton of energy out there. And in that same year, I went and I bought a property, and it was cash flowing, right? It was cash flowing, but the property went up in value too. So I sold it 2 years later for $106,000 profit, right? So like I looked at it, I was like, oh my God, like this thing that barely took any bit of my time was paying me $1,000 a month, went up and it became worth $100,000. So I realized holding property made more sense than all the working I was doing.
So how did you actually think of buying your first property? Like who did someone guide you through it? Did you read a book?
Totally. Yeah. So biggerpockets.com, like they're a big website now. They're huge. But if you go back and listen to the podcast, if you go back to like podcast 10, 20, like they got, I think 300 or 400 podcasts now. But if you go back to, there you go. Yep. Brandon Turner, the rental property investment. Yep. I got the same book sitting right back here. That's how I got started, but I was listening to like the original, Brandon Turner and Josh Dorkin, and they were going through like their process. Just listening to these guys talk about investment, I realized it was possible for me too, I'm sure you felt the same way, right, Bilal? Like you listen to them and you're like, okay, normal guys doing normal things. Like if they can do it, I can do it.
Right. And what I like about these people, like they help you build a map. But I just feel like people are just afraid to take action just because they're afraid to lose money, right? Did you have the same fear when you were becoming a real estate agent and when you were purchasing your first property?
Yeah, totally. I was terrified, absolutely terrified. I mean, I still get scared, right? Like I just bought a $2 million complex for $800,000. I'm still terrified. I mean, I closed and like now I'm like, okay, whatever, I own it, it's being managed. But up until it's still the biggest deal I'd ever done. And so you get scared, you get terrified. It's like, shit, like what if something goes wrong, where we could lose everything, our other properties could go because of this, or, we had to sign that we would be the recourse on the loan. Like if something goes wrong and we don't pay, like they come after our assets. So like, there's always this other level of fear. The fear never goes away. Small property, big property, it doesn't change. It's always this thing in the back of your head. Will it work?
Okay, so how did you push yourself? Like, you were making like, like reasonable money as an agent. What pushed you to take another risk and actually buy a property? And just to give an idea, like, was a property that your first purchase, was it like very expensive? Was it easy for you to afford? Like,
Right.
did you have a hard time paying for it? Like, yeah.
So the timeline, I messed the timeline up a little bit. So I bought my first property before I became an agent. I bought my
Okay.
first one while I was still working my 9 to 5 as an accountant, and I was making 40,000 a year. It was 157,000. It was a 3 family, and I only had to put down $12,000. So I had a single family. I bought my first house at 22, but it didn't really make me anything. It was just when I sold it, I basically got my money back. Is what happened. So I rolled that money into that 3 family, and I only put $12,000 down, and that 3 family made me $1,000 every single month. Once I'd got the tenants going, it took me about 2 months to get the units back up in order.
Okay, and how did you actually figure that part out? How did you like, because like buying a property is one thing, but actually like finding people to come into it,
Yep.
what did you have to learn and how did you learn how to attract people to the property?
Perfect. Great question. So I wouldn't do this now, but back then what I did was I just put it on Craigslist, and I ended up getting a whole bunch of people interested. And back then it worked well to get a lot of attention. But Craigslist, as you know, is a discount website. So I got a lot of discount people, but it worked out. The tenants stayed for a year, 2 years. Now we use higher end websites like apartments.com, Zillow, rent.com, and we end up with much higher quality tenants. We do the background checks. But up front, I read a book called Landlording on Autopilot, and that was, Brandon Turner from Bigger Pockets. He's like, hey, read this book. And so I went through the whole book, and I realized, okay, this is how you advertise. We use Craigslist, and pretty easily fill people in.
Okay, so you were consuming a lot of knowledge, by reading books and
Yeah,
podcasts. So would you say that your risk or your fear of actually investing became less when you start
absolutely.
purchasing?
Yeah, at this point, I'm 250 books in. I'll be 300 books by the end of the year. I read 52 books a year, 1 book a week, and I've been doing that for the last 5 years. Every book I read gives you more confidence. And the reason you keep reading is because you don't know, because you've been through so many books and you've had so much success from the books that you're like, if I just get to the next page, the $1 million secrets on the next page, like I just gotta keep reading, like, and like, okay, maybe it wasn't this book, next book, like what's the one with that secret, with that tip? And that's why I pile drive through books, sometimes 2 or 3 books in a week, just looking for the answers. Where are they?
Okay. I want to ask, like, your 9 to 5 job, what made you want to leave it?
Yeah. Probably the same reason everybody wants to leave it, right? Like it's just you don't control your life. And I was driving an hour to work. I put in my 8 hours, and they forced me to take a lunch, so it was really like 9 hours away from my house. And I put another hour back in, so I was out of the house 11 hours a day, for 5 days a week. And then all I had was the weekend to do the things I wanted to do, and all I wanted to do was fix my house. I had bought a property. I wanted to work in the yard. I wanted to rip bedrooms apart, rip the walls off and redo them, raise ceilings, run electrical, like just my fun things. Whatever your fun thing is, you want to spend more time on it. And when I realized that my house was a liability and it wasn't paying me, I got frustrated. I got mad. Like I got so upset. And that's why I started investing. But once I started investing, I realized like I'm making my second year of owning both properties, my first 2 properties, I made 35,000 from the 2 properties, and I was making 45,000 of my job. So I looked at it and I was just like, well, like I could see just doing this, just fixing my properties for a living. And I don't think that's a good advice for anybody, but that was what was going through my head was, I'm just going to trade one job for another job that I actually like, I'll just buy more property doing what I enjoy.
Okay, makes sense. So, what was so like important for your freedom? Like you said, you wanted to like take that risk because it's still a risk, right? Because you're on your own.
Yeah.
It's not stable. It's not like secure. Yeah. Like, did you feel the same way? Did you feel like what your job was more secure, or what you're doing on your own was more secure?
So yeah, I would say that I knew my job was secure, but I was willing to risk it. I was willing to put it all on the line. There's 2 elements there. So I was married at the time, and me and my wife were in a rocky situation. So I wanted to improve that. And so I wanted to spend more time with her, building a business that we built together, a wedding invitation business. So she was a graphic design artist. I was a salesperson. I'd go and I'd push the sale. I'd go and do the marketing, bring it in. And we were building that. And I felt that if I had more time to work on that business with her, then we'd have a stronger relationship, right? So that was one of my big motivating factors was I see so much potential in my wife and what we can do here. I want to dedicate to her and I want to dedicate to the business. And I knew that investment wise, I already saved up $25,000 on the sidelines because I was taking all my rents, just stacking it away. All my checks that were coming in from my company, I'd stack them aside because I knew I was preparing to take this time off. And so I had 25 in the bank. I had 2 rental properties. They were pulling me $2,000 a month. I was living rent free. And I knew that my wife's business was growing. And so I took the risk knowing that everything was going to be okay if I just stayed the course, kept grinding it out. And then a month later, she asked me for a divorce. So, so bam, how's that for planning?
Wow.
Yeah, so that's how it works, man.
Yeah, like it just shows like, you know, you can plan certain stuff, but there's just some stuff that are going to come up that you have to be adaptable.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And business is like that.
right. And so I can see, you know, like you made yourself, like, obviously you're saying it's a risk, but you've made the path for your success so much more like achievable by, you know, getting that knowledge and, you know, just having that money to back you up in case something happens.
Yeah.
Did you feel like if, for example, something bad did happen, you can find another accounting job?
At any point, they were still sending me. So what I had done for years was jump from job to job, right? So I was always working as a 1099 for other companies. I was a contractor. I'd go in, I'd do accounting for this one. I worked for companies like Coca-Cola, Johnson & Johnson, Computer Associates. I worked for these big companies and I'd bounce around. So I'd always had these recruiters. I'd come up, even back then, right? I'd found a way to get marketing for myself, right? I'd hire recruiters who would go on hunt for jobs for me, marketing professionals. And so as I left, the emails never stopped, right? Even though I pulled out of the marketplace, the emails, it was $25 an hour jobs, $30 an hour jobs, $45 an hour jobs. And I remember, you know, having the conversation with my brother one night. I was like, Josh, like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do this, man. Maybe I should just go back to the 9 to 5. You know, I got this offer for $30 an hour. You know, it's like $65,000 a year benefits. Like maybe I should just take this. And I remember he looked me in the eyes and he said, no, man, like, how long do you think how long has it ever taken you to figure out a business? And I was like, well, 8 months to a year. Like with 8 months to a year, I was moving up, right? And he's like, you've got this. You just stay the course, grind it out. You know, trust me. He said, don't ever look at those emails again. When somebody offers you a job, you just say no, say thank you, and stay grinding, right? And I get chills thinking about that conversation because that was the best advice I got. You know, within a year, I was making 100,000 more than I ever made before. So he was right.
That's a great mentor.
Yeah. Yeah, my brother, man. He actually just wrote a book. Where's his book? Right there. So my brother just wrote a book on educating children, empowering children for success, for a guide to coaches, mentors, teachers, and parents. So very proud of him. He's phenomenal. I'd say he's the reason I'm still here doing what I'm doing. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, so I'll definitely be happy to include both your links, your brother and your book as well on the bottom.
Cool, man.
Yeah, because people do need to you know, get benefit. So I was reading one of your posts. You were saying that, you know, in one of the Instagram stories, you were mentioning that, you know, people who are selling 3 to 4 houses per month is like, that's low. You should be selling like 10 houses per month.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you go over that?
So I was talking about under agreement. So a house under agreement means it takes 3 months for it to close, right? So if you have 3 or 4 under agreement, it's going to take you 3 months to make that money. So even if you're making, you know, $3,000, $5,000 per transaction, it could take you could be making $3,000, $5,000 a month, which for this audience, that is good, right? And in the beginning for any agent, that is good. It's a start. But when I was getting to the point where I was cranking it out, realizing how the business runs a year into it, I was carrying 10 under agreement as like bare minimum. Like 10 under agreement was like, oh my God, I got to go work, right? And that was my floor. And 17 under agreement was kind of my ceiling for a period until I figured out how to break the ceiling. So what that means is I was closing is 3 to 4 a month. We're talking $15,000, $25,000 months. right? Whereas the average agent's sometimes not making anything. They're not closing anything in a month. And then they close one, and then they go 2 months without closing anything, right? Or they have one a month where they're making $3,000-$5,000 a month, which is fine if that's all you want, right? But in a business where you can make as much as you want, like, why would you stop, right? It's just, how do you become a little better? How do you help more people? How do you keep going? And yeah, I think that if you're not aiming for the $10,000 a month, like, come on, right? Aim for 10, aim for $10,000 a month. And then once you hit it, aim for 15, just keep pushing. It's not about the money. It's about, like, can you do it? Can you as a human being deliver that value to the marketplace? Can you do it? Right? Find the way to do it.
Right. So someone, actually working at a job, they're making like 3,000, at a good job, or 4,000, that's really good job. For them to, like, they're not convinced that they can do it on their own to make that $10,000, right? So
Right.
as a business owner, and you've done a bit of everything, what would you say to someone, to help them and try to make that realistic? Because for you, making, over 10,000 is like, it's nothing. It's like maybe
Right.
the lowest month that you do in the entire year.
Right.
Like, how can you convince someone, like, based on where you are and where you are right now, to actually, like, try to take that leap?
Yeah. The first step is just look at what you're making right now and see how can you double it, right? You look at that and say, what can I do to double this income? And it's been the step that's always worked for me, is I look at it, double it, then double it, then double it, then double it. I used to give myself a year to do that, or some people may be in a situation where they can triple it in a year, or quadruple it in a year. So the first couple of years are easier. I don't want to put that bad program out there. Maybe it is all easy, and I'm the one who's having a hard time with it, right? But I'll tell you, going from $250,000 to the $500,000 was not as hard as going from the million to $500,000 to the million. That one was a much more difficult struggle, because there's so many tax plays that are incorporated in it too. But to go back and say, how do you motivate yourself? I would say look at an investment, look at retirement, right? Set a goal of retiring in 5 years and ask yourself, are you on a path to do that? But when you realize you're not, it means you need assets. That's really what it's all about, right? Building an asset that'll bring you in that, even if you're only bringing in 4,000 or 5,000 a month. The 10,000, I think it's a worthy goal. I think it's the right goal to have. But even if you were bringing $4,000 or $5,000 a month, but you didn't have to work for it, it was an asset managing that money, an asset bringing that money in. That's a better lifestyle than what you're doing right now, going to work for 30, 40 hours, because your only asset is you. You want to build something beyond you. Like, a rental property is an asset that provides housing, a business, like a marketing program, like a marketing company. Like, we spend so much on Facebook ads, just handing Facebook this money because they're doing a great job for us, right? And I look at some of the other ads, things that click funnels, right? This is something that we pay for. And I can see you got Expert Secrets back there. So you're a fan of Russell Brunson too.
Yeah, definitely.
That's an asset that I'm paying for, right? But then my lead funnels, the pages that people click on to buy the mentorship, that more than pays for that asset, right? So he's created assets for himself. I'm creating assets for my people, for myself, and then my students are creating assets for themselves. And we could have a world, and hear me out on this one, right? We could have a world where nobody has to work if everybody contributed to enough assets early on in life. If you built a couple assets early on in life that are contributing to society, untouchable, unstoppable, the only thing you have to do is maintain that asset over time. Just maintain your asset, keep it going, and if you're smart and you want to protect, grow the asset, help more people, make it more effective in larger areas. And you could, like PayPal, right? Look at Elon Musk, right? He gave us the ability to transact over the internet, and he deserves to be rich from that. Absolutely. What the ability to PayPal, Venmo is PayPal, right? The ability to do these transactions, he's right. He deserves to be a billionaire from this. Tesla, right? Changing the ability for us to use electrical cars and make it common for everybody as opposed to gas. Giving us the great effects of not having greenhouse gas, right? He deserves to be a billionaire. Like, of course, he's helped more people by building machines that add value. Those are extreme examples, but you can do it in something as small as, marketing a company, going out and selling more cars, just selling a better quality product, reaching out to people who are selling, they want to buy real estate, or maybe you're an investment advisor. You just teach people how to put their money in the right places. It doesn't matter, right? You do marketing. So if you can help more businesses make more money, you can build assets for them, online assets that are generating leads to their business, just like Ty Lopez is talking about. Like, then you're improving their lives, right? Like, that's a machine. You deserve to be paid for creating that machine. That little asset, that little program you put them in, boom, increasing income, it works.